it is a pleasure for me to present to you Pastor Nicky Rivera.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me over again for this series called Revelation of Liberation. I'm gonna try to share my screen once more.
Did you unpin me, Jinky? Okay, that's fine.
Okay, right. Okay.
I can see that. Yeah.
So can you see the?
Yeah, I can see it.
No, but I can still see the participants.
Okay.
Oh, anyway, I've sorted it out already. Hopefully this is fine.
Okay.
So we're actually on chapter 14, but as a review for recap, some of you have missed it, and due to popular demand, I'm gonna repeat the last part.
Okay.
So we're here on Revelation 13:18. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person, and its number is 666. Okay. Since I am a systematic theologian, I'm big on themes, and I see patterns in the Bible. That is, from Old Testament to New Testament, I can see bridges, I can see coherence. So, like what I always emphasize in this series, that Revelation is highly informed by the prophetic books in the Old Testament. First, the major prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah. This is just a review. Ezekiel, Daniel, and then the minor prophets, the 12 minor prophets. So the writer of Revelation, John, is highly shaped by the prophets in the Hebrew manuscript. For instance, this one, 666. Why did he use this number to begin with? Because to the audience, this number is familiar, 666. But to us, modern readers, or now in the 21st century, like I always say, our imagination flies. And it goes elsewhere, not intended by the author itself. For us not to get lost, since you already have your pen and paper with you, or notebook for that matter, write this down, 1 Kings 10:14. So 1 Kings 10:14. You can see there the number 666. But that is in weight of gold, that King Solomon receives every year from neighboring countries. That the monarchs there were admiring him and consulting for his advice, and because he's been blessed by tremendous wisdom from God, that's why he receives those. It's not really payment, but due homage to the wisest king on earth during that time. And I believe still in our time, no one can surpass King Solomon's wisdom. So it says here also the number of a person. And they connect this to King Solomon, not to any other entity for that matter. Primarily. So you have there 666 in connection to King Solomon. Secondarily, what about the Christians persecuted during the time of Nero in southwest Turkey? For them, the enemy, that's the beast, the cohort of the dragon, is no other than Caesar Nero. And if you compute his number, Caesar Nero in Hebrew, even in Latin, I believe so, it will come to 666. But that's just the secondary application. Why am I emphasizing on the first application? Simply because I don't want to do ICGCs. That's my own thoughts are forced into the text. What I'd like to do is exegesis. What the Bible is saying is what I put in my mind, what I intend to understand. And for this matter, 666 means gold or earthly wealth. Like I said, it's a measurement for the gold which King Solomon receives every year. So when we say earthly, that comes to mind Jesus' own advice. We shouldn't save earthly treasure, but rather have treasure in heaven. And another thing in Hebrew thought, okay, because I mentioned about pattern, about coherence. The first mention of number 6 in the Bible or in Hebrew manuscript is what? Creation week, isn't it? So you have their 6-day creation. And on the 6th day, Adam was created. And so are the beasts. Okay, now it gets more exciting. Why is it that the beasts on the earth have been created on the same day with Adam, the first human? The emphasis there is that humans would be like beasts. Okay, here, Revelation 13:18, acting like a beast, having an attitude, disposition that's just been driven by appetite, nothing more, not really a rational being. If there is no image of God. So you got there that that's why it's emphasized that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Without that divine image and likeness, we will be like beasts. And another 6, again in Hebrew thought, since 7 refers to God or perfection or heaven, then number 6 is lower than heaven. And what's that? Earth. In other words, okay, write this down, please. When you hear the word 666 as a Jew, okay, or one of the Christians there in Asia Minor, upon the writing of this epistle and it's being read as a circular letter in churches, what comes to their mind is something about earthly wealth, and it's got everything to do with humanity, with creatures, with the earth, everything that's material, or in our case, secular. That's why I introduced 3 letters. That's C, okay, so 666, and this one, CCC, for maximum impact, for long-term memory. The first C is creation. Second C, creatures. Third C, compass. Okay, let me explain that. Creation first C, because we'll be using this analogy to this imagery called 666 and having that person that will be our tool in understanding chapter 14. So let's now go to chapter 14 as I read this further. All right. Then I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion. And with him were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. We discussed that already, that the lamb is no other than Jesus Christ. Remember John the Baptizer shouting out, "Behold, the Lamb of God." And he was pertaining to Jesus Christ, his first cousin, actually. So standing on Mount Zion, because on Mount Zion is Jerusalem, the city of God, or Jerusalem in Hebrew is the city of peace, Salem, or where peace comes from, proclamation of peace, literal meaning. And with him were 144,000. This pertains to, I discussed this already few sessions ago. It's got something to do with census, military census. If you missed that part, Deuteronomy 1:11. But then again, you can go to YouTube. I've uploaded the series on my YouTube channel and also FIC's channel. So census for war, Deuteronomy 1:11. Whenever a king, at least in the ancient Near East, I'm particularly pointing to Israel. When the king of Israel calls for a census, that means getting ready for war. So we have here the 144,000. That is symbolic. If 666 is symbolic and all the numbers here are symbolic, including the 144,000. I know you've heard some preachers or expositor of Revelation, so to speak, that takes this literally, but I'm not going there. What I do with my interpretation is to look for themes, and I can see Revelation wholesale as metaphorical figures of speech that speaks powerfully to its immediate audience. And there's a concern actually that I heard first or second session, that why is it that my presentation got nothing to do with our present time or 21st century? What about the things that they've been hearing for so long, that this talks about our time? We're gonna get there, don't worry. Who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. This reminds me of remember the 7 churches? So Lamb and father's name in Revelation 3, that's mentioned in the church of Philadelphia. Okay. So why foreheads? Because, like I said, it's a mindset. It's a decision that you're committed to doing. And verse 2, and I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. I can see John having difficulty describing what he's been hearing because he's just using limited resources. And what's that? What we have here on earth, that he'd like to picture for his audience to relate and the lesson for them to resonate with. We can see this is a reminder of what happened on Mount Sinai when God was talking to Moses and when God gave the 10 Commandments and his precepts and ordinances. Just tells us that God's presence is here and then his message is getting across. Okay. Why harp? Perhaps because it's the instrument of their famous king, King David, and David being the ancestor, kingly ancestor of Jesus Christ, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Verse 3, and they sang a new song before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. So we can see here the, what's that? Song of Moses. That's in, where is that? Exodus 15. So write that down, please. Again, it's all figures of speech. What happened during the time of Moses in Exodus 15? They've been redeemed. They've crossed the Red Sea and they're rejoicing for God's intervention and saving them from their enemies, the Egyptians. So it's the same thing that's being told to the listeners there in Asia Minor, to pump them up spiritually, to encourage them to keep going, like the messages in the 7 churches and also in the 7 trumpets. So no one could learn that song except the 144,000 who have been redeemed from the earth. So you see the pattern here. The people of God or Israel getting out of Egypt, and then the Christians in Asia Minor getting out of their perilous condition or persecution, if it not physical, that means they really escape death, okay, from the hands of Caesar Nero, and then upon the writing of Revelation, Caesar Domitian, the end of the 1st century. So that's it. But death is also a form of being redeemed, like what we've been seeing in the Revelation 3 and 4. The saints that were martyred are with God, okay, figures of speech, and they're asking how long will God intervene? And you have here the sense of that redemption. So why army? Census for war? Yes, the people of God or Christians for this matter are a part of God's army, but army to what? Create havoc and then violence, a source of military conquest? No, because their leader was no other than the one who rides the white horse, remember, in the 1st trumpet, who is Jesus Christ. Not having sword, but having bow. And that bow signifies the bow rainbow during the time of Noah. Okay. Sign of covenant of peace. So this army are peacemakers, not peace brokers. We are part of God's army, but our ways and means are different from world armies. I hope you get the point. So it is this who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. Yeah, the 144,000, God's army, this follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They've been redeemed from humankind. Humankind, remember, the number 6. as first fruits for God and the Lamb, and in their mouth no lie was found. They are blameless. This points us back to Revelation 3, where you have a church in Sardis. Members there were not defiled by the bees. So they were not adulterated. They didn't participate in spiritual immorality. So let's now go to the messages of the three angels. Okay, caveat. There are more than three angels in Revelation 14. Okay, let me give you these verses. In verse 15, you have there another angel. And also in verse 17, another angel, which I'll be discussing later. And also, we have here the four living creatures. They are actually cherubs. Okay, so angels as well. So we're not focusing on the three angels per se, but with the message they have in relation to 666. Like I said, that's going to be our tool in explaining what these messages are. Then I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven with an eternal gospel. Okay. So we have here the continuation of that worship in heaven, where you have there the Father and the Lamb, God and the Lamb here in verse 4. Okay. So this is good news. It's not bad news. It's part of worship before God in heaven. So that's why you have here the eternal gospel. So whenever we expound on these messages, it should inspire people, enlighten them, not to scare them or to show them off. No, that's why it's a revelation of liberation to every nation and tribe and language and people. This only shows the coverage, okay, that it's worldwide. No one is spared. Everyone will know about this eternal gospel, which reminds us of Jesus's commission to the Gentiles: preach the good news. And what's the good news? Kingdom of God. Of course, you have no kingdom, there's no king. So let's not leave out the king in the kingdom of God, like in other themes as well. He said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and the springs of water." All right. Arena. So first message, Exodus 20:11. Okay, that's the platform in understanding the first message. So it talks about creation. So first C, remember? First C is about creation. But what's the message here? It's not about creation per se. It's about the Creator. That's the eternal gospel. So don't focus on earth or creaturely reality, whatever pertains to created beings. Rather, focus on the Creator. That's why you have to fear God and give Him glory as the Creator. Okay. Verse 8. Then another angel, a second, followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. That's Isaiah 29:9. You see what I'm doing here? I'm trying to let the scripture interpret itself. And how do I do that? The prophetic books, or the for us, the Hebrew manuscript, the Old Testament, testifies, gives insight, informs us what John is saying here. So in message 1, focus on the divine, not human, not the creatures, but the Creator. Message 2, as we read Isaiah 29:9, we're not going to do that now. That's your homework. That's why you can review this and you have your notes with you. It talks about divine again. So divine sovereignty. Divine sovereignty has something to do with compass. Remember the second or the other C, compass. Why compass? Because in Hebrew thought, when they think of 6, or they heard the number 6, of course, it talks about creation, 6-day creation, and also the coverage of creation, its dimension. That's 6 as well. 6 sides. You have north, east, west, south, okay? And then top and bottom. Do you see that? 6. So aside from hearing creation, they also hear its dimension or sides. And why compass? It talks about God's sovereignty over his creation. Everything, everyone is covered by the Creator. No one escapes his attention. Everyone is well provided for. And Babylon, I already alluded to this last time. When you hear the word prostitute or the great harlot or Babylon, or it says here in Jeremiah 51:31, which we're gonna go later, the daughter of Babylon. That means it copies, it inherits the spiritual immorality, adultery, fornication of Babylon. That is no other than the people of God. Yes, you heard me right. I already gave the, what's that? But I'm still looking for it now. Where is it? That it is indeed Israel, for that matter, especially in the Old Testament. When you hear there the great prostitute, like in the time of Hosea, Gomer representing God's people, the prostitute. Oh, I hope I can see it. Give me a minute. You were here last time. You've written those texts already. There you go. For those of you who didn't join us last time, so write this, Hosea 1:2, Jeremiah 3:1-3, and then Ezekiel 20:30. If you're gonna miss this text, you just have to rewatch this on YouTube. But that pertains to Israel as the harlot, the prostitute, the one wearing a scarlet robe. And I'm gonna be supporting that premise later. All right, that's sorted out. So when we see here, Babylon is fallen, in their context, okay, it means the harlotry, the spiritual immorality of Israel has ended. And when we say spiritual immorality, that's got everything to do with the temple. And during this time, the temple was already flattened. And the Israelites, or the Jews for that matter, Judeans, were exiled. And the complete ban of the Jews in Jerusalem was in 135 CE, Christian era. Can you believe that? The Judeans couldn't go back to their own land. They're fallen, they're done away with. That's why Revelation focuses on the Creator, focuses on the temple in heaven, focuses on the worship there in heaven. You see the trajectory from creation to Creator, and then from compass dimension here on earth to divine sovereignty, God's rulership, absolute rulership. She has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Yes, you can say this is Babylon, but you can't separate Babylon from Israel. That's the immediate context. All right. They've apostatized before God. Again, Hosea being commanded by God to marry Gomer, a prostitute. Gomer representing Israel, and then Hosea representing God. Verse 9. Okay, message 3. Isaiah 51:17. Then another angel, a third, followed them, crying with a loud voice, those who worship the beast and its image and receive a mark on their foreheads or on their hands, they will also drink the wine of God's wrath, poured and mixed into the cup of his anger, and they will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of God or the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. There is no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and its image, and for anyone who receives the mark of its name. Remember, we discussed that the 144,000, okay, symbolically speaking, have their minds set on loyalty to God, faithfulness to God, as opposed to this having the name of the beast, not the name of the Lamb. So let's go back to verse 9. Worship the beast as opposed to worshiping the Creator. What does that mean? You worship the creation, not the Creator. Your preoccupation is like a pagan. And what's that? Always being preoccupied, busy with the things of this world. Yes, food, shelter, clothing. I'm referring to Matthew 6. They're necessary, yes. But what should be the priority? That's the question. Because these things, which are necessary, things on earth, will follow as a result if we seek first the kingdom and its righteousness. And we have here the reverse. You look for, you chase after the creation, not the creature, the material things, the gold, 666, wealthly material, possession. I'm not saying they're evil. What's evil is the intent that is innate in humanity, sad to say, and its image. That's why I said the 666 in verse 18 of chapter 13 informs us how we interpret chapter 14. If we don't have the image of God, the default is we're going to have a beastly image. Nothing will separate us to distinguish us from animals or beasts on the sixth day of creation. What separates us, what makes us distinct, is God's image in us. It's his character, the character of Jesus Christ. For instance, humble, meekness, being submissive, loving your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. That's the opposite of being beastly. In a beast mode, so to speak. No, we're not beasts, so don't be like the beast. Be like the Creator and receive a mark on their foreheads and on their hands. Foreheads, mindset, hands, what your mind thinks, it translates into action. This is now the present application that you've been yearning for. This talks about our time now, humanity, our preoccupation. What interests you? What's your priority? So we have here wine of God's wrath, judgment that we've been discussing last time. Okay. Now the question is, they've been tormented as part of God's punishment. I believe it's not punishment because God had enough or just it lost his temper. No, because in Isaiah and the rest of the prophetic manuscripts, the striking is for healing. The reason why there's punishment, it's a sort of discipline. So the aim is not to pour out God's anger, to lash on them, no, but to reform them and resuscitate their dead spirituality. Why do we have here fire and sulfur? And we have that also in chapter 20 of Revelation. Isn't fire alone enough to consume, to burn? Why is it that in Revelation, fire is always partnered with sulfur when it concerns God's judgment? Fire burns, but sulfur purifies. You can Google this. Sulfur is used for healing, for cleansing, for purifying, not for annihilation. Anyway, I'll be expounding that. But if it's just fire, yes, I can take that in. It's just annihilation, just wiping them out. But if it's fire and sulfur, it speaks more than anger. It's got the element of healing, of recovery. 11, and the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. It's like the prayer of the saints. Now, this on the other camp, they produce smoke as well. It's like incense. Why? It's because of the sulfur, not just the fire. That is the aim of God here. There's no rest, day or night, for those who worship the beast. Why? Because if you always chase after material stuff, you won't get satisfied. I know you've already figured that out. There's no end to desiring these things, but there's surely an apex satisfaction if we chase after righteousness in God's kingdom. So you have there, as a recap, the first message is don't focus on recreation, rather focus on the Creator. Second, yes, we live in slippery times. We have high inflation. We have, now I'm talking present stuff here, war in Eastern Europe, and then the boiling tension in Southeast Asia. We've just passed the pandemic. What God is saying here in Revelation, specifically in chapter 14, don't focus on what's happening here on earth, because God's sovereignty is at work. So see, that's compass. First, see creation. And then last, creatures. If we don't have the image of God, again, the divine image and likeness, then we will just be like beasts. That's why we're created on the same day. That's the emphasis there. We got to maintain the image and likeness of God, aka the character of Jesus Christ. Verse 12, here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and hold fast to the faith of Jesus. We mentioned this before, this twin aspects or characteristics of the faithful. So having the commandments of God for the Judean reader or listener, this is not just them, this is 613, the Torah, or this pertains to the Old Testament, our manuscript now. And hold fast to the faith of Jesus Christ, that's the New Testament. Or you have to marry the commandments with the faith of Jesus. It is his faith given to us. We don't have faith. What we have is what sort of faith? Not even as big as a mustard seed. Do you get the point? We don't have faith unless God gives us the faith of Jesus. So it's already time. We'll just continue this next time. So let's now open for our Q&A.